Summit Falls looks peaceful from a distance. Tree-lined streets, polished sidewalks, smiles that last just long enough to hide the truth. But under all that quiet, something rots. Power. Here doesn't wear a crown. It wears a badge. And justice. She doesn't walk freely. Not yet. I came here to disappear to catch my breath after losing too much. But when you've seen the system from the inside, you don't get to walk away. You don't get to forget my name is Dr. Selena Ward. And on the morning they tried to break me, I remembered who I was. And I remembered why I fight. The early morning air in Summit Falls carried that crisp stillness just before the town woke up. The towering pines along the Silver Pines neighborhood whispered in the breeze, their shadows long across the manicured sidewalks. It was the kind of place that looked serene from the outside. Gated estates, retired judges walking dogs, old money calm, but beneath the surface, Summit Falls had secrets buried deeper than its tree roots. Dr. Selena Ward didn't belong here. Not according to most who lived behind these white picket fences and ivy-covered gates. But that didn't matter to her. Wearing black running gear and a face of quiet focus, Selena jogged past rows of stone houses, earbuds in the rhythm of her footsteps, grounding her. She had lived in Silver Pines for just over 6 months now, moved here under the radar after what the press called a controversial whistleblowing scandal back in Portland. What they didn't know was how close she'd come to being buried by the very justice system she used to believe in. She wasn't hiding, but she was watching. That morning, as sunlight streamed through the trees, she felt something shift, a presence. The hum of an engine behind her broke the usual silence. Selena slowed her pace, pulling out one earbud. A black and white patrol cruiser trailed her at a snail's pace. Too slow to be coincidence. The car rolled to a stop ahead, blocking the jogging path. A young officer stepped out. He wore the uniform like a costume. Everything perfectly pressed, but the expression underneath wasn't professional. "It was personal morning, ma'am," he said. His voice wasn't warm. Selena took a breath. Controlled, morning officer. Something wrong. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, his eyes scanned her from head to toe. Not inappropriately, but like a scanner searching for threats or excuses. "You live around here?" The question wasn't casual. Selena's gaze didn't flinch. "I do." He shifted his weight. "We've had reports. Suspicious activity. I'll need to see some ID." Her brow lifted just slightly. "I didn't bring my ID. I'm on a run." A pause. His jaw tightened. "That's convenient," he muttered, just loud enough. "You got a name?" Selena hesitated for the first time. Not from fear, but from calculation. Something was off. This wasn't protocol. This wasn't random. And something in his eyes said he knew. "Dr. Selena Ward," she replied finally, watching his face carefully. Nothing. Not even a flicker of recognition. Or maybe too much recognition. The badge on his chest read, Rourke, Kyle Rourke, that name. It clicked. His father, Patrick Rourke, had been sheriff of Summit Falls until a quiet resignation 2 years ago, after a young Latino boy died in custody. No one was ever charged. No one even apologized. Selena had read the sealed report. She remembered that name well. Kyle stepped in closer, his tone sharpening. "We can do this easy, or we can do it by the book. But I'm not letting you keep jogging without knowing who you really are." Selena held his gaze. She could hear her pulse thumping in her ears, but her voice stayed level. "Officer Rourke," she said clearly and slowly, "you're making a mistake. One that will follow you a lot longer than this shift." His eyes darkened, not in fear but in something colder. Calculation. He knew who she was. That's when it hit her. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a setup. And she had just stepped right into it. As the cruiser's backup lights flickered, Selena turned slightly, just enough to see the red light of a dashcam mysteriously off. She swallowed the tension in her throat. This wasn't going to end on the jogging path. This was only the beginning. The interior of the Summit Falls Police Department was sterile and cold, like the truth they'd been trained to conceal. No one met Selena's eyes, as Officer Kyle Rourke led her through the side entrance. Not through the main doors, not under the security cameras. This was controlled, orchestrated. Selena didn't resist. Not because she was intimidated, but because she was watching. Every hallway, every glance, every name tag. She'd been here before. Different walls, same system. And it always started the same way, with silence. Rourke shoved open a plain steel door and gestured toward a windowless interview room. "Sit," he said. His authority felt practiced, not earned, like he was mimicking something he'd seen in a movie. Selena sat slowly. Her wrists weren't cuffed, but her dignity was being tested. "I'd like to speak with a supervisor," she said calmly. Rourke smirked. "Oh, we'll get to that. After you answer a few questions." He leaned against the wall, crossing his arms like he had all the time in the world. "Where were you at 5:20 a.m. this morning?" "I was jogging," Selena answered. "Funny," he replied. "No one saw you." She blinked. "Is that so?" Rourke slid a manila folder across the table, but didn't open it. The folder was empty. She could tell by the way it flopped. This wasn't about evidence. This was about intimidation. That's when she knew. For sure, this wasn't just about her presence in the neighborhood. This was retaliation. Somewhere behind that smug expression was a fear of what she knew and what she could prove. "You've pissed off a lot of people," Rourke said suddenly, his voice quieter. "You think no one's watching you. You're not untouchable, Dr. Ward." That sentence wasn't improvised. Selena narrowed her eyes. "Who's pulling the strings here, your father, or someone higher?" The smirk faltered. Just for a moment. Bullseye, then a knock. The door creaked open. A uniformed officer stepped inside, nervous, young, and clearly uncomfortable. Lieutenant." "There's someone asking to see the woman you brought in." Rourke's expression stiffened. "Who?" The officer looked at Selena, then lowered his voice, not low enough. Said his name's Reed Langston. Selena exhaled slowly. Reed. The knock wasn't just a visitor. It was a message. She wasn't alone. Rain hammered against a glass window. Selena stood in front of a Senate subcommittee, holding a folder, much like the one Rourke had tossed across the table. But hers was full of names, real names, officers, judges, deals. Reed had been there too. Then a bright-eyed journalist who still believed in the weight of truth. She had warned him. "Expose them and they'll come for you first. Then me." He had smiled back and said, "Then let's make it worth the chase." 2 months later, her key witness disappeared. Her clearance was revoked. And Reed vanished from the news cycle like he never existed. Until now, Rourke stood there, jaw clenched. "You called him?" Selena didn't answer. She didn't have to. This wasn't going the way he planned. The balance was tipping. He turned to leave, muttering something into his radio. The door slammed shut behind him. Selena finally allowed herself a breath. Then she looked up at the camera, in the corner, off as expected. She leaned forward, whispering under her breath, just in case someone on the other side was listening anyway. "You wanted to burn me quietly," she said. "But now we're all going to burn." The courtroom, inside Summit Falls City Hall, was standing room only. Press activists, retired cops, citizens in Sunday best, all drawn by one headline. Whistleblower turned suspect. Accuses police of conspiracy. But Selena Ward wasn't on trial. Not anymore. She stood at the podium, flanked by legal counsel, and a small team from the State Office of Civil Integrity, eyes locked with those who once called her a disgrace. Her voice, measured, unwavering, cut through the murmurs. "You wanted to know why I didn't fight back the morning I was detained. Because I needed the world to see what happens when someone who knows the law is treated like they never belonged under its protection." Gasps rippled across the room. She continued, fingers tight on the edge of the podium. This wasn't about a jog. It wasn't about suspicion. It was about silencing an investigation that's been building for years, one I never stopped pursuing, even after the system tried to bury me. Then came the footage, projected on the courtroom screen, shaky phone video of her detainment. No aggression, no resistance, just power abused. Then a second clip, grainy dashcam footage, previously wiped, now recovered. A young boy Latino shoved into a patrol car by none other than Kyle Rourke, the officer who tried to erase the moment with silence. That boy died 36 hours later, and the final blow, a leaked voice memo from former Sheriff Patrick Rourke himself, months old, but damning. If Selena Ward keeps poking around, we'll give her a reason to stop jogging altogether. Dead silence. Even Kyle, seated beside his lawyer, didn't try to defend it. His face drained, jaw slack. He had underestimated her. Again, the judge motioned for order, but order was already broken. Selena stepped into the press circle. The crowd behind her, louder than any mic protesters, held signs, reading justice. Can jog too, and we are not trespassers. To her left stood Reed Langston, back in daylight after years in journalistic exile. He wore no press badge, just a quiet resolve. Selena turned to the cameras. This isn't victory, it's a crack. And through that crack, we shine light on every name, every badge, every silence that let this happen. Summit Falls isn't broken, it's waking up. A roar of applause followed, but Selena didn't smile. Not yet, because she knew what still lay ahead. Reviews, appeals, cover-ups, trying to recover. But now the people were watching. And that made all the difference. Kyle Rourke, stripped of his badge, stood outside a battered community center on the outskirts of Summit Falls. He was ordered to report there daily. For his diversion program, a thin alternative to jail, brokered under public pressure. Inside, he'd sweep floors, sit through ethics seminars taught by the very people he once profiled, and every day walk past a mural of the young boy who died in custody. He hated it, but what haunted him more was the stillness of it all. No one shouted at him, no one spat. They simply looked at him like he was already gone. Back in her home, Selena stood by the window, watching the sun rise over Silver Pines. The same path she jogged the day this all began, stretched out in front of her. She laced her shoes, no cameras, no headlines, just her. As she stepped outside, she passed a group of kids laughing on their bikes, unaware of the history sewn into their streets. Now, Selena offered them a nod. One boy waved, and for the first time in a long time she smiled. Not because justice was done, but because it had finally begun.